to Grizzly Bear Blues Live. My name is Shawn Coleman. Always a pleasure to be with you. Hope wherever you are and wherever you're listening, you're having a great start to your week. And again, it is more than awesome to be with one of the best when it comes to covering the NBA, covering the Grizzlies. Friend of the show, good friend of mine as well. His name is Parker Fleming. Parker, it's a pleasure to talk with you again, sir. And hey, for the first time in a month, we've got something meaningful to talk about when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, Sean, I really appreciate you having me on the show. I'm glad to be talking with you about Grizzlies basketball throughout the off season. Obviously, the ninth pick, kind of a bummer. I was at Mother's Day brunch with my mom, and she was cool with me having it on my phone because she and my mom and my wife Allie. They've been going to games together since I want to say the 2021-2022 season or 2022-2023. I don't know, but they've been going to games together for quite a while now. My parents have had season tickets for about 20 years now. So my mom and my wife, they've had to sit through and watch this Grizzlies team this past season just battered with injuries, shuffling through 33 different players. So I was like, maybe my mom will get rewarded with a top four pick for Mother's Day. And instead, the basketball gods absolutely disrespected her. And that part upset me. But, I do think ultimately, I think it'll all work out. But Sean, I'm ready to talk about it. Like, let's dive right into it.
See, this is how situations differ depending on who you're speaking with. Because while Parker is surrounded by an awesome source of support, his wife, his mom, both awesome. They have been big Grizzlies fans for years. Meanwhile, my wife, who love her to death, not the biggest sports fan. She sat there with me though and was wondering why I just randomly all day on her first Mother's Day was excited all day for this event to happen. And then randomly, all of a sudden, I was thrilled and then so disappointed from what she thought was a random guy just holding up NBA team logos. So again, a bit of a drastic viewing difference when it came to the NBA draft lottery. But, hey, at the end of the day, the Grizzlies got the ninth pick. Yes, I do think that, it's clear it's a bit disappointing for all that we've gone through this year. The pick is a bit less value than we had anticipated. But Parker, I do think that one potential positive from this is that the Grizzlies can now go a variety of different directions. And, sometimes having more options, even if you don't plan to have them, may work out in a beneficial way for a creative front office. So let's start there. What was your initial reaction? I've got a couple of points that really stood out to me, three main points, but I first want to get your initial reaction to when the Grizzlies landed the ninth pick.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my initial thoughts went to who can the Grizzlies get? Because at that point, it all became very unclear to me. It's like, okay, who can they get? But also, too, after I found out the Grizzlies pick, I turned off the broadcast, so I waited until Twitter popped up for the rest of the order to show. And then I actually like went through the order, and I'm sure we'll probably do a similar exercise. And I'm like, this still works out to where the Grizzlies can go get their guy if they feel they can. And as mock drafts started to drop, that kind of eased my initial feeling just because there was a lot of mocks that had guys that I personally liked for the Grizzlies all the way up until like the second and third pick. I mean, Sarr was number one for me, like undisputed, but like there's so many different mocks with guys that I would personally have considered at two or as high as two. So I'm just gonna like run through the list here. ESPN had Stephon Castle going to the Grizzlies at 9. The Athletic, Bleacher Report, and The Ringer have the Grizzlies getting Ron Holland. No Ceilings has the Grizzlies getting Cody Williams. SB Nation and Yahoo Sports have the Grizzlies getting Reed Shepherd. And the thing that eased my heart the most was NBA Big Board from Rafael Barlow, CBS Sports, and then the Game Theory podcast with Sam Facini and Bryce Simon that did a live reaction lottery mock draft after the lottery. They all had the Grizzlies taking Donovan Clingan. And that just eased my heart because it's not even about getting Donovan Clingan either. Like, it's the idea of like, okay, they get to 9. but they could still get a really good player that could help the Grizzlies in their quest to sustainable success in an NBA championship. Whether that's in year one, whether that's by the end of their rookie contracts, we don't know. But it kind of eased my mind about the idea that the Grizzlies could still get a really good player even at the ninth pick.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I had similar thoughts. I had three initial thoughts when it came to the Grizzlies getting the ninth pick. This isn't one of the three, but the first one is okay, Dern. At the end of the day, two-thirds of our odds were going to be to get in that seventh, eighth, ninth spot. So I had kind of, landed on the fact that that's probably where I needed to start looking at the mindset. But the first thing that stood out to me was, okay, I know that this makes it harder to get Donovan Clingan, but how is he just completely out of the equation now? Is it far-fetched to consider him potentially falling? And that's when me, you, and others, I think, kind of had similar thoughts in that, we had brought this point up before, even if the Grizzlies had picked 7. There are several teams before the Grizzlies, and with the Raptors out of the equation, with the Spurs having 2 picks now, I think that takes one of the biggest threats that would have gotten Donovan Clingan. But several of these teams, number one, in recent years have spent a significant asset to get a young big that's already on their roster. And number two, they're all trying to establish their future cores. And so point guards, combo guards, wings probably are more valuable ways to go than a center. So the first thing that stood out to me was Donovan Clingan falling to 9 probably is not likely. It's more unlikely than it is likely, but at the very least, he could fall in a range where you could trade up. So the idea of going after Donovan Clingan still stood out to me as being a possibility. The second thing kind of alluded to what you pointed out in that you look at different mock drafts out there, and one guy, we'll take Ron Holland, for instance. You've seen multiple times Ron Holland getting picked by the Wizards at number 2. You've seen multiple times him getting picked by the Grizzlies or even later in mock drafts.
Yep.
So in terms of the assortment of names, as you go from one mock draft to the other, it can be drastically different. But the big key is that you're typically looking at the same 9 names being in that assortment, with Cody Williams and Dalton Connect kind of being, the outliers that could work their way in. But the point that I'm getting at is that while we'll eventually see what happens on draft night, it could go many different ways, you're still going to get one of those 9 guys. And I think that that's of good value. To me, I would probably have Matas Buzelis as being the one, at the bottom of that list. But any other guy besides that, even Buzelis, I'd be fine with. My point is that I think that you're still going to get a very good value if you decide to pick. But the last point is the fact that I feel it's notable that Drew Hill and Michael Wallace, who were both there representing the Grizzlies at the draft lottery, Zach Lowe of ESPN, each of them within 24 hours of us getting the 9th spot, they made it a point to highlight the fact that the Grizzlies are really going to potentially look at trading this pick. Now, me and you and many others already know Zach Kleiman's going to do his due diligence. He always moves on draft night, but it really seems that trading out of this pick could be a possibility for veteran help. Now, I don't think any of this is going to be ultimately determined until they see the board fall on draft night, but the point that I'm getting at is that I still feel that there's value with this pick, and for content purposes, what's even more exciting is that now your options, the chance of you going a variety of different ways probably increases than you locking in on one guy had you got an earlier pick.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up the whole trading the pick idea. I know everyone on Grizzlies Twitter had a lot of conversations Tuesday about that because you had the aggregation tweet from Zach Lowe when, and this is no discredit to Zach Lowe or anything at all. He's reporting what he's hearing. That's fine. Zach Kleiman also said at exit interviews at the end of the season that the Grizzlies were going to explore every single option on the table with that draft pick. They also said they will explore every option on the table when it comes to getting a center. And they will get a center one way or another. We just don't know if it's going to be in the draft or not, or with that specific pick or not. So, and I do think it's one of those things with the trading the pick that I feel like is tricky, especially in this draft, because, I'll do further research on it later. But I know I did some preliminary research. In the past decade or so, you haven't seen many teams been able to execute a top 10 pick trade that resulted in trading completely out of the draft. You just haven't seen that. And also, too, this narrative of a weak draft class doesn't do anything to bolster the value of the asset. What are you expecting to get with the 9th pick in a weak draft class? Because if you keep pushing that and pushing that, pushing that, you're not getting a starter. And then when you break it down, who do you want to trade a top 10 pick for? Dorian Finney-Smith? No. Jakob Poeltl? No. Like, that's kind of where I stand on the idea of trading the pick, but also too, we haven't even seen the avalanche of intel yet. So, like, yeah, you can say that, but we don't know quite yet who's available. Obviously, I know I've seen people bring up Denny Advia. Obviously, Washington could be intrigued. I know. I love Denny Advia. He's like trade targets, number one guy that I'd want to trade the Grizzlies to trade for. But and I know Washington may jump at the bit to trade a top or trade and get another top 10 pick with their second pick. But at the end of the day, they could probably look at the board and be like, given Denny Advia's agent's contract, how likely is it that this player right here will be more valuable than Denny Advia? It's like that scene from Family Guy where they're Peter Griffin and Lois. They're in that meeting and they're like, "Would you rather have this boat or this mystery box?" And I'm looking at this from Washington's perspective, and Peter Griffin's like, "Well, the mystery box could be anything. It can even be a boat. It can be better." And Lois is like, "No, take the boat." And he takes the mystery box, and it's just a box. But the point I'm trying to get is we float out all these different trade target ideas when really we don't know who's quite available yet, and we won't really know who's quite available yet until like around the finals, really. Actually, you will probably see more intel coming out this week as some of these reporters are at the NBA Draft Combine. You had some of these executives talking at the NBA Combine as well. So just kind of look out for intel to drop, but I remain skeptical. I'm not skeptical of the fact of the trading out of the pick to being a possibility because I think every possibility is on the table. But for it being the possibility, I'm skeptical just because all the narratives and BS around this draft are devaluing the asset to where I don't think it can be maximized in the way that the Grizzlies want to.
And to add to your point, we see, where I came from when I talked about Denny Advia earlier today was that Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. He mentioned the fact that the Wizards were looking for a third first round pick, and you put that with Zach Lowe that the Grizzlies are looking to trade. We know the trading history between Zach Kleiman as well as Michael Winger of the Wizards. They've connected over the past 18 months. They've connected on the Luke Kennard trade. They've also connected on the Tyus Jones trade. So there's a history there. There's common sense there. All that different stuff. Using the ninth pick as a part of a package to go get Denny Advia from the Grizzlies' perspective certainly makes sense. But Parker, I honestly think that from the Wizards' perspective, they're more angling to try to get a first-round pick from a team that may not necessarily want to pay that contract because they're so close to a second apron. They're trying to, instead of trading one of their best assets, because the Wizards have no reason to trade Denny Advia, but they're trying to, instead of trading one of their best assets to get that first-round pick, they're wanting to instead see if they can get a reasonable deal to add another young player on contract. So again, it's all about having teams line up as well. And in a draft where you don't have a top 5 pick in what's considered to be a weak draft, it's just hard to make that happen. So I do agree with you. A pick actually being traded will be hard to do. I think it's more likely that you see Zach Kleiman move around the board to get the player he truly wants than it is them potentially going out to get a Denny Advia. Maybe we could get him with future picks. But that leads me to my next point. In that, again, Anthony Sane mentioned this of the Anthony Sane show here on Bluff City Media, and I agree with him completely. You're not going to really see anything done. I talked with Greg Gaston on Sports 56 this morning. You're really not going to see anything done until draft night because so much of it is going to depend on who's there. For instance, if you were to see, the draft board kind of falling away that it is, Klingen's not there. He's drafted early, but you see a connect like get drafted maybe in the 5th through 8th spot. Then that means 2 of the top 9 players I mentioned will fall. What if Ron Holland is the guy that falls? And the Grizzlies just don't want to take on another player who, yeah, it's great that they're going to get the upside, but they want someone to contribute. What if a team like a Washington who has multiple first-round picks later in the first round, what if they want to go come up and get another high upside pick to put with their young core, what they're hoping will be their young core? That's a potential route you could go for a trade. What if both Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham trade down and you've got some of these teams who are on, have been playoff teams, New Orleans or Orlando, who certainly could use a clear point guard of the future. What if they potentially want to trade up from, the late teens to 9 to get their point guard? And maybe the Grizzlies could talk with them about, a current NBA player. I do think that, yes, trading out is a possibility, but I think that also waiting for the draft board to fall and then trading back based off who's available at 9, that could be the potential there as well. At the end of the day, I'm kind of like you, though. I don't see the Grizzlies really using the 9th pick to get a tremendous value on a current NBA player, because I kind of had the overall opinion of this draft. But I do think that they could, especially with the creative front office, maybe move around the draft board to create something more than may initially be thought to be there.
There's one possibility, Sean, that we have not mentioned, and it's a staple in Zach Kleiman's arsenal. That's trading up. Like, are we sure? Because let's look at it this way. All right, so 2019 traded up from 23, I think, to 21 to get Brandon Clark. 2020, the Desmond Bane thing was a trade in. It wasn't a trade. It wasn't a trade up. It was a trade in. But they traded up from 40 to 35 to get Xavier Tillman. 2021 traded up from 17 to 10 to get Zaire Williams. You know that story. And then they also traded up in that. They also traded up from 51 to 40, 40 to 30 to get Santi Aldama. 2022 traded up from 22 and 29 to get Jake LaRavia. So I'm looking at these possibilities because I'm really thinking, the Grizzlies, they also have this really good asset of the 39th pick. Not really good. Sorry, it's good for a second round draft pick. 39th pick. And I'm thinking, that pick's a little bit too rich for a two-way contract, in my opinion. And I don't know if the Grizzlies want to have 2 rookies on the 15-man roster. But what if they use that? Let's say they call Charlotte, a brand new front office, and they say, hey, we're willing to offer you the 9th pick and the 39th pick for the 6th pick. That 6th pick would then, from there for Charlotte, they would have the 9th pick, 39th pick, and 42nd pick. And the Grizzlies, they can move up to 6. They can go get Donovan Clingan. They can get Reece Shepherd, Stephon Castle, whoever they feel like is best for there. I don't want to just say, yeah, they're going to trade up for Donovan Clingan, because they can go trade up for someone else if they feel like they can go get a center elsewhere. But I do think trade up, especially with how the board is potentially going to shake out, I think that's a real possibility, especially if they feel like they need to go get a center in this draft.
Absolutely. Now, if they want to trade up to go get a center, that's definitely something that can make sense. But Parker, what about, say Klingen's not there, and we combine a couple of ideas, one that you've brought up in the past, but one that I definitely think could make sense. Say that you've got multiple players, Ron Holland and Stephon Castle at number 9, right?
Okay.
They're both on the board. Who picks at number 10, Parker?
Utah. Oh, I know exactly where you're going here.
Parker, remind me, who held pick number 30 in the 2020 draft when we traded up to get Desmond Bane?
Boston.
Who was the head decision maker?
Danny Ainge.
Kleiman working his past trade partners, and you get creative as a way to be able to both fill your center position, but also still keep your pick, which is a big thing for me, keeping a very attractive pick to get out of that 4-year contract. But say, for instance, you've got a guy that Utah clearly wants. Utah trades 9 and Walker Kessler to Memphis for 10 and 39. Maybe you throw in, if you want to throw in Santi Aldama, I think that could work, because then the Grizzlies get Kessler on a good 2-year contract instead of Santi on 1. That may be too much. But the point that I'm getting at is that you've got different ways, whether it's like you're saying, talking with a new front office about trading up to get the guy you want, or if it doesn't work out, you've got the ability to then potentially trade back a little bit. In a future episode, we'll talk about several different trade possibilities. But I think talking with Utah, there's multiple guys on the board that they like, and you have a way to put, and Walker Kessler is available, make it work. Make it happen. See if you can do something. And that's why Zach Kleiman enjoys the draft so much. And it's so much fun as a Grizzlies fan to watch him work, is that a lot of times he'll make good picks, but also it's typically because he'll move around the draft board. So your point about trading up, that's his bread and butter. But I also think there's clearly easy, simple ways to trade back that's not going to, do a lot of creativity that could still allow for the Grizzlies to address multiple needs on draft night.
Yeah, obviously, it's one of those things that I'm very much believe it until I see it kind of thing with trading down, just because we haven't seen him trade down before. He's always been a guy that goes in and trades up for his guys. He trades into drafts as well. I mean, in 2020, he traded in for Desmond Bane. In 2022, he traded in for Kennedy Chandler, traded in for David Roddy in 2022 as well. So I don't know. I'm finding it. I can see a trade down because at the end of the day, it can help turn, one asset in the way of a contract and a pick into someone who's clearly going to be in your rotation, even at a lower draft pick. So I can see anything. It's a fun draft because it's so unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen, how the board's going to shake out, and it's going to make the coverage on it pretty fun.
So then, Parker, let's have some fun with it. Let's see how the board shakes out. Listen, we're going to have many of these episodes before the draft. We're going to talk about several of these prospects in detail. But Parker, let's talk through what could the board look like at number 9. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to give us 90 seconds, okay? I'm going to give us 90 seconds for picks 1 through 8. No worry about trade, anything like that. You're going to get 4 picks. I'm going to get 4 picks, but we'll talk about it with each other. Ultimately, whoever has the pick, they'll decide who they want to take. So I'm going to set the clock here for 90 seconds, and you're on the board with the Atlanta Hawks, who, by the way, once again are showing that you never know what's going to happen when it comes to the lottery. What the 10th best odds and they land the number 1 pick, they're likely going to, I won't ruin the surprise. I'll let you obviously do that. But Parker Fleming, you are on the clock in the 2024 NBA draft representing the Atlanta Hawks. Go, sir.
Okay. Alex Sarr. That didn't take long. Alex Sarr just feels like a no-brainer to me. Parker, because even if they keep Trey,
you got to be dramatic. You can't just sit there and say the guy's name. Go ahead. I'm kidding.
Oh, with the first pick in the GBB Live mock draft of top 9 picks, the Atlanta Hawks select.
Whoa. Okay, go ahead.
Alex Sarr from France and from the NBL's Perth Wildcats.
Now go ahead. Yeah, dramatic.
Do I need any explanation?
Maybe not, but hey, just a couple of things about him.
Okay, just a couple of things. I think he's a guy that fortifies our defense. I think him and Okongwu and Jalen Johnson would be so much fun. And I feel like he can work with Trey and or DeJounte. I just think it's a no-brainer pick for them. And it's going to be interesting to see how that all spins, because I know I read a good article today from Kevin O'Connor that hey, this is just the beginning of their decision making, because I think they're within the first apron of the luxury tax, and they're in the middle of the East, and they have this shiny asset as a number 1 pick, and they also have one of the biggest rumored traded stars on their team with Trae Young. So yeah, Atlanta Hawks lock it in with Alex Sarr.
There we go. Right at 97. Impressive job, sir. All right. So now we're going to reset here with the second pick of the 2024 NBA draft. I selected for the Washington Wizards. Trade Denny Advia in the number 2 pick to the Grizzlies for the 9th.
Okay. No trades.
So I could go a variety of different ways here. I could see the point of getting Donovan Clingan, because the Warriors have been so without just clear young talent. Even Denny Advia.
The Wizards. Yeah.
The Wizards. Yeah. If I said someone else, sorry.
You said the Warriors.
My bad. The Wizards. They've been so without young talent. And in this draft, them just getting value out of this pick would be a huge win. So I could see them going the route of a Donovan Clingan. I could see them going the highest upside route of a Ron Holland. But I also think that this Wizards team has just missed so much on getting a true source of ball handling, potential creation, someone in the backcourt that can stand out as kind of being a future part of their team. They missed on Johnny Davis. They missed on Jordan. The guy that they got from the Wizards. My head went blank. I'm showing my old age here. Anywho, the Jordan Poole. He's still there, but
Jordan Poole.
Tyus Jones is a free agent. So even though he was just injured, I think he's fine. I believe that the pick for the Wizards would be, but where's he from? What country is he from? Nikola Topic.
He's from Serbia.
Serbia, yes. Serbian, yes. You have plenty of talent from Serbia in the NBA. Very talented player. They could craft him in the way that they want to. I think Nikola Topic probably makes the most sense for the Wizards at 2.
What does a perfect draft night look like for the Memphis Grizzlies? So many possibilities.
No, man. Yeah, it's so many possibilities because they even saw some rumors about trade potentially.
Yeah,
I can't necessarily say they didn't come out with a big man because you still got free agency and you still got the rest of the summer. So I'm not necessarily.
Man, Chris we're going. If we come out the draft and don't have a big man, good God, bro, it's gonna be unbearable until free agency starts. I don't care about that either. I don't care what fans have to say about that because I know it's gonna happen.
Perfect night is just make sure they come out to draft with a productive player. Also I would say probably condense the picks or something because you got 2 seconds, but you got two-way contracts. And I like those two. I realize people
the 2 guys we got on 2 ways. Yeah.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
When I saw that Michael Cole put out a story of Adam Silver continuing his check-ins with Ja, I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Draymond Green is still kicking dudes in the nards and throwing spinning back fists in the middle of games. And for some reason, Ja Morant still needs a check-in. He's yet to hurt anybody. He's taking the right steps. Shut the hell up, dude. Like, what are we doing? It is such posturing. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and it's gross. It was steep. And he was trying to make an example of him, and we didn't think he'd be able to stick to that. Lo and behold, by damn, he hasn't. Miles Bridges in the league. Draymond had an indefinite suspension away from. I don't even think it was actual suspension. Sorry, you knew exactly what button to push because I saw the article come out, and I was like, what a cuck. It's unbelievable.
Adam Silver, the cuck.
Come hang out with Daniel Greer and Nathan Qualls on Grizz 901 Live. Every Tuesday night at 9:01 live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
So with the 3rd pick in the 2024 NBA draft, Parker, I am ready for you to break my heart. You are the Houston Rockets. Who are you taking with that 3rd pick?
So I'm not going to break your heart here. I was mulling it for a little bit, and I just think for them, Stephon Castle makes so much sense. He is a Ime Udoka kind of guy with his defensive tenacity, the amount of rim pressure he provides, just everything he provides towards winning basketball. They also tend to go after positional size as well. Aside from Fred VanVleet, they're pretty big across the board. I think Castle also accomplishes that as well. So, I mean, I think Castle is a guy over the next 5 weeks or so, 5-6 weeks. I think he's a guy who can really become a workout riser and really solidify himself in not only the top 5, but like for sure in the top 3.
So I'm actually surprised by that pick. And I want to get a draft philosophy question out here to you real quick, because I think it's, you're picking a guy who I think it's kind of up in the air that he would be BPA. But even more so, he's a fit for what they like. But is it overkill with them? I'm not questioning what you're going with in terms of you have sound reasoning. but they've got Tari Eason. They've already got Amen Thompson. They've kind of got those guys who add value outside of scoring, defense, rebounding, play bigger than they are type guys. This team definitely could use some shooting and some quality decision making when it comes to shooting, playmaking, things like that. So even though Stephon Castle absolutely is a Ime Udoka guy, he fits the mold that they put there. Is it overkill to go with him instead of going with the Reed Shepherd? Just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, it could. I mean, frankly, I was between Reed hunting.
Yeah.
I think we read it in a column in February from The Athletic. They're star hunting. And what happens when you star hunt is you got to sacrifice depth. And we already know, too, that they have a core six, pretty much. They have Şengün, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, and there's one other player I am forgetting. Wait, I said Jabari Smith, right?
I believe
so.
So.
Let's redo this. Şengün, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore. 6 guys. Şengün and Green are already up for extensions, and it's going to be a fascinating discussion because you cannot extend all 6 of those guys if you are projecting them out in a way that you think they can. If you project that they have this high upside where they could potentially become all-star or any of them become all-stars, you're not going to be able to afford them whatsoever. So I'm thinking if they're going to consolidate at some point, they're going to have depth. And that's kind of my rationale there. I was really between him or Reed. And I can see Reed here. But I just see the size kind of doing it for Castle. But also, too, I think Castle's a guy. He's a guy, he shot well in the star workout, I believe, the NBA draft combine. I think he's a guy that could really rise in workouts, especially if he shows off his jumper. Because I think Stephon Castle, and I kind of have this indicated in my ranking, I think Stephon Castle is one of the few players that has a pathway to becoming the best player in this draft. And it all hinges on the outside shot.
In that case, I think it makes sense for BPA then. So I'm on the board now with number 4, and I can
Spurs.
I can go a variety of different ways with this. Listen, the Spurs need 2 things. They need guard play and they need shooting. But I do think that one thing that definitely has, even though that they've spent, like they drafted Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan here in recent years, they tried to go a little bit smaller with like Blake Wesley and others, with their guard play. But I think in this situation, you've got 2 point guards that are on the board that can make sense. I think the Spurs will kind of let the board fall for them as they will at 8, or maybe they have other designs when it comes to a point guard elsewhere, outside of the draft. Zachariah Ricochet. Parker, say his name correctly.
It's just Zachary Ricochet.
Zachary Ricochet. I think that he probably makes the most sense here for the Spurs. I think that he still has some shooting upside. He's someone that I think would be an ideal for when you put Wemby at the center position potentially and Devin Vassell at the 3. I think that his upside as a shooter or maybe a 3-and-D guy, and we all know that Popovich's system may be have the best track record ever of getting the most out of foreign players. I think that he makes sense at number 4 for the Spurs.
Yeah, I know draft Twitter, you've seen with some analysts, they kind of taken a little bit of light of Zachary Ricochet's slump that he's gone through. His shooting has regressed from his scorching hot start to the season, and he doesn't have as much creation upside. But I talked to Rich Statement of Mavs Draft about this, and he had brought up a good point where it's like you don't find a lot of 6'10", 3-and-D wings, really, at all. You got Trey Murphy, you got Michael Porter Jr., and the other guy, it would be like Jabari Smith Jr. and to an extent Jaren Jackson Jr., but they're 4s. So, I think that kind of warrants, or he had said that, and I'm still kind of in my study on Ricochet, he said that kind of warrants a top 5 selection, especially in this draft. When you have a guy that size that provides a coveted skill set, that's going to go high. And I think Ricochet is a guy that can fit next to Wembanyama on both sides of the floor. He can space the floor. Because even with that shooting regression, he's shooting 39% from 3 over 50-plus games. It's still a really good sample size at the end of the day, even with the shooting regression. But also, too, he's a a long wing, so that should be providing a lot of length for the Spurs defense as well, which, that's going to be a staple for Victor Wembanyama's game and building around Victor Wembanyama. It's his defense, and adding more players projected to be plus defenders is only going to bolster their chances of winning a championship down the road. So that's a good pick. I would project them to pick them.
So you're on the board number 5 with the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, so this is where it gets tricky. I don't even want to say it gets tricky. I think they're going to pick Matas Buzelis from the G League Ignite. Positional size. There's questions on if the shot can be real or not. He shot 26% from 3 with the G League, somewhere around 26% from 3 with the G League Ignite, but he shot 43% with Sunrise Christian his senior year. But if you look at any other grassroots information, whether that's prior high school or on the Adidas circuit, he also shot sub 30%. So who knows what it could be. But I think they need something on the wing, really, to kind of fit between Cade Cunningham and, to an extent, Jalen Duren. I'm Matas Buzelis for them at 5. I just think it makes the most sense. I'm kind of low on Buzelis. I'm kind of debating on whether or not I want him in my lottery or not, just because I'm worried about the shooting. I don't know what position. He provides good weak side defense and weak side rim protection, but I don't really know what his defensive position is, because his lateral quickness isn't really there much to defend perimeter guys, but he doesn't have the strength to defend 4s and 5s. I don't know what he defends. And then he also doesn't have a lot of burst getting downhill. So, but I'm not trying to, obviously I'm not trying to come across like hypocritical as saying like, I take this guy at 5, but I don't have him in my lottery. I'm just trying to project this out of how I see Detroit doing this. I also see with Detroit, they're going to have here.
Well, and I think also as I'm going transitioning to number 6 with the Charlotte Hornets, I think that 6 at 5 and 6 kind of makes sense, especially if the top 4, which I think has a very good chance of going as we look at it. Sar, Topic, you pick Stephon Castle, but I think with Detroit and Charlotte, you're especially looking at with Detroit, you're having a new head decision maker. With Charlotte, you have new ownership. So these guys are really wanting to make sure that they get good value out of this draft. So I think that when it comes to who they can go with, I agree with you. I think that they're going to prioritize some certainty when it comes to their pick. Buzelis, I think, could be a high upside guy. But when you look at the top 10, I think that the 3 players who bring in the most certainty in terms of their games are Dalton Knecht, Reed Sheppard, and Donovan Clingan. And so for that reason, if those 3 guys, though, are on the board at 5 and 6, I also think Detroit and Charlotte probably make the most sense as being the landing spots for Reed Sheppard, because you've got Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, who are the primary ball handlers or playmakers for Detroit. You could stick Reed Sheppard, a shorter off the ball spot up shooter, more than likely, next to those big guys. You've also got Brandon Miller as well as Lamar Ball in Charlotte, and they could use another guy that could be kind of a combo guard with Lamar Ball. So in my opinion, I think Donovan Clingan.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Put some respect on his name. It's LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball. I don't know what I said. Sorry. But my point is.
Lamar.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's all good, though.
Yeah. So my point is that I do think that you could go either with Clingan or Sheppard. I just think that Sheppard probably is a more a bigger need, fits a bigger need, especially with shooting. So you went Matas Buzelis with the Pistons at number 5. I'm going to go with Reed Sheppard as the pick for the Hornets at number 6. You're on the board. You're on the clock with the Portland Trailblazers at number 7.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the place where, if you're the Grizzlies and you want Clingan, this is the spot where you kind of start to sweat a little bit. I've seen Portland mocked for Clingan a lot, and I'm not going to act like they have any needle movers at the 5. DeAndre Ayton, they're paying a lot of money for. I don't see them moving off. They can move off of Robert Williams, but I also feel like they might try to showcase him a little bit just to try to reboost his value after his season-ending knee surgery. Duop Reith, he had a really good rookie season. I think getting Clingan, you're kind of pushing Reith off to the side, and I don't know if that's something they want to do. I'm looking at their roster right now. Again, you don't want to draft you don't want to do, especially at the Blazers stage of the rebuild. Yeah, they could probably afford not to go any guards here with Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp. They probably don't need a guard, and you don't want to go need all of the time. But I think they desperately need some sort of 3-and-wing prospect to develop, because I'm looking at the roster. It is Matisse Thybulle, Ryan Rupert, Jabari Walker, Chris Murray, and Tumani Kamara. I just think they need some more stuff 3-and-D. And I'm going to go with a guy that I saw, Sean Henkin, who is a really good reporter for the Portland Trailblazer, or that covers the Portland Trailblazers. He's on Substack. And I'm going to go with the guy that he tweeted about earlier that he really likes personally. I am going to go with Cody Williams at Colorado.
All right. So, so in this situation, I'm the Spurs at number 8. And in this situation, it has worked out absolutely wonderfully for the Grizzlies before I get to the Spurs pick. And I will say this, as God is my witness, if I'm lying right now, let the good Lord strike Parker down with the lightning bolt. I did all that I could to avoid the fact that Donovan Clingan is still on the board at the number 8 spot for the Spurs. I don't think the Spurs are going to pick him, though, if this is how the board falls, because right there for them is Rob Dillingham as a point guard. I'm going to go with Rob Dillingham at number 8 to the Spurs. It just makes too much sense. I understand that, Clingan is a good value, but again, at the end of the day, for these teams trying to establish a core, combo guard, point guard, wing probably are more value than a traditional center. So I'm going to go with Rob Dillingham at number 8 for the Spurs. I think, especially with the talent that's around him, you can have him as your offensive engine. He's got good scoring ability, very good value with the ball in his hands, probably can improve, his overall defense and decision-making when it comes to playmaking. But again, he's in a great system that can help do that. So Parker Fleming, you are at number 9 with the Memphis Grizzlies. And on your board,
I did it.
Donovan Clingan,
I did it. I gotta say,
Ron Holland and Dalton Connect are all still there.
Yes, I will say there is a little bit of a gap between Donovan Clingan, Ron Holland, and then Dalton Connect. I will say that, but I gotta say though, I did not do this intentionally. I promise you, I did not.
I didn't
do this intentionally. I did not sabotage the mock draft to where until Donovan Clingan fell to the Memphis Grizzlies. Because I think we're also showing that a lot of these teams, and we kind of walked through it with our reasoning for these teams, a lot of these teams need help on the wing. And this draft is so all over the place and everything, where there's not a consensus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know what I mean? So the Grizzlies at 9, they get their starting center, Donovan Clingan, a.k.a. Kling Kong, a.k.a. the Paint General, a.k.a. the front court partner next to Jaren Jackson Jr. to help us reestablish the Grizzlies as the best defense in the NBA.
You didn't do it right. In honor of the great Ludwig Kaiser, it's not.
Okay, I need 6, dude. I need.
Hey, General Donovan Clingan.
Okay, see, here's the thing, though. I think your southern twang is hindering your ability to hit a good impersonation.
You have given me the moniker of being the Paul Heyman of Grizdom, and yet you're over here talking about the ability to be able to come up with a wrestling pronunciation. I know that we're not Anthony Sane over here being the star of 9-on-1 Wrestling. Don't you dare insult my wrestling impersonations. Go ahead, Parker.
Dude, no. All right, the Paul Heyman of Grizdom is kind of a bar, not gonna lie. That's pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I just think I don't know. I think this draft has a lot of variance. I think we can probably run through this exercise every single time. And I think there's instances where I can kind of get a feel. I feel like this would be a very good exercise to go about as we're trying to piece together different pieces of intel that we see out there, because it may not fair this whole time. This is just kind of how I feel after the lottery, how it all shook out. But at the end of the day, if the Grizzlies are coming to draft night and they have either Donovan Clingan, Reed Shepherd, Stephon Castle, or Ron Holland. I kind of took Nikola Topic out of there because I don't think he falls past 8.
No.
Any of those guys are on the board, I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic. I'm happy.
Well, and notice also that when it comes to the players that we talked about, the 3 players that I mentioned at the Wizards pick, Nikola Topic, Ron Holland, and Donovan Clingan, I think that each of those 3 players could make sense for them. But notice in our mock draft, we went with Topic, but 2 players that were on the board then at 9 were the other 2 that I mentioned, Ron Holland and Donovan Clingan. Because I think that when it comes to looking at these other teams, I know a lot of people, when I mentioned the fact that Clingan could fall to 9, they were like, oh, he's too good of a talent. All you could talk yourself into other teams taking him. Sure, you could.
Yeah.
I think that there is more valuable positions out there with higher upside potential options that you could go after. So I do think that the idea of Donovan Clingan absolutely going before 9 is, I think that's more far-fetched than him falling to 9, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Then again, though, it's one of those things where it's crazy because, again, I think over the coming weeks, I think we can kind of see some stuff that seems far-fetched now become not so far-fetched, and then some stuff that's not so far-fetched now becoming so far-fetched. Like, for example, we have some mocks where Shepard's available at 9. In 2 weeks, that may not be the case at all. Same with Ron Holland. Again, a guy I would love to talk in almost an entire episode about Dalton Knecht.
We will.
I think he's good. I think he's a lottery talent, but I think he's also a guy that can really rise up the board. I think he's the guy that can also be the chaos agent of like, oh shoot, Dalton Knecht's going 5. I don't know if you saw this, but at the Athletics, Josh Robbins, he listed like 9 prospects that could be in line for the second pick for the Washington Wizards. Alex Sarr, Zachary Richey, Nikola Topic, Donovan Clingan, Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepard, Matas Buzelis, Stephon Castle, and Dalton Knecht. Dalton Knecht's range starts at 2, Sean.
Well, and the reason why is because I talked with who did I speak with the other day about this? Dad burn it. I can't think. Oh, I was talking with Chip Williams about it the other day of the Grizz Spaces. Is that, yeah, you talk about the speed and weak draft, all this different stuff, but another thing that makes this draft so unique, Parker, is I can't remember a draft in recent memory where you had so many of the top prospects, their defensive side of things stands out more than their offense. I mean, you've got Sarr, you've got Castle, you've got Clingan, you've got Cody Williams, you've got Ron Holland, Reed Shepard. Those are, 6 of the top 11 prospects. Their defense stands out above it. So not only is it a weak draft where you're questioning the upside of a lot of these picks, but Knecht also is a shooting prospect. He's one of the better all-around offensive games that's out there. That's why I think you're eventually going to see Zach Edey potentially go up draft boards. I don't think that he's going to, I don't think he's necessarily a lottery pick. But my point is that, to your point, proven offensive prospects could be picked higher, even though they're older prospects in this draft.
Yeah. No, agreed. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to cover because, there's probably other guys that could rise out of the top 10. And there's guys that we talked about in this mock who are mostly projected outside the top 10 that could very well be in the top 10 just because there's so much variance. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because I feel like there's just going to be new information out there every week that ultimately leading up to the chaotic night of the NBA draft, a 2-night special. Round 1, Wednesday night, June 26th. Round 2, Thursday night, June 27th. I'm going to be an absolute sicko for the second round. I will be seated for that. But, it's going to be fun.
They should absolutely have made it the lottery night 1 and then the rest of round 1, round 2, night 2.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Also, speaking of that, my good friend of the show, producer 929, Connor Dunning, had this great idea. He thinks the draft lottery should be the 2-night deal, draft lottery night 1, or the lottery night 1, everything else night 2.
I don't know about that. I think when I say lottery, I mean the first 14 picks.
No, but get this. You do the lottery, and then an hour later, start the draft.
I just don't.
No, but
Go ahead.
But the thing is because then now you're also allowing like, you don't have like one like the number one guy or like an Alex Sarr be like, oh, I'm only going to work out for the Hawks and the Wizards. You got to work out for all these teams. You got to meet with all these teams. And it's just a chaos factor. How many more people would watch the NBA draft knowing you don't know what's going to happen because of the lottery being that night?
I could see that, but I think it would be a hard sell for the NBA itself. But I agree, entertainment value wise, it would be there. I know I'm being the old man yelling at the cloud, but Parker, it's been fun going over this with you. I think we covered a lot of the different perspectives and also showed, kind of I'm not saying we're to the level of NBA decision makers, but I do think we gave some very sound reasoning why you can consider many names at different positions and why you can see some very valuable names fall to the Grizzlies. But Parker, as we're wrapping up, do you have anything else for this edition of GBB Live?
No, I don't. I'm just excited to talk about the draft. It's been one I've studied for quite some time, and I'm ready for that final leg in the 1600. Ready for it.
Well, next week we're going to get started talking about some draft profiles. I'm going to start with the name that I think probably is a target of many that can make sense. We're going to start our draft profiles with the one and only Ron Holland next week.
Yep.
Looking at him as being, someone that can make a lot of sense for the Grizzlies if he does fall. For Parker Fleming at Paka_Flocka on Twitter, my name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC. Find all the great content at BluffCityMedia.co, BCM Grizzlies as well. The Next Gen podcast, Core 4 podcast, Grizz 901, Anthony Sane Show, No Bluffing podcast. All great content that is out there. Make sure you track all the shows, follow, submit, listen to them. Follow Parker's great work over at Substack
Elitist, yeah.
Great content for a great cause. I'm going to try my best to work on my enunciation and actually be able to say every other third word correctly by the time we do our next show. But until next time, for Parker Fleming, my name's Shawn Coleman. We'll talk to you again soon on here on Grizzly Bear Blues Live.